Welcome to the 14th episode of Anthropoid Ethos. In this case, we have Laureen Vonnegut, and I want to give a bit of an intro to you. She's an American novelist, playwright, and screenwriter who works in Mexico and used to live between Romania and Mexico. She also directs and produces theater and film. Her multidisciplinary work leans towards female-centric stories, using transgenerational characters to explore their interactions and dialogues. Common themes and subjects are characters searching for their lost identity and epiphany-driven plots. Laureen's novels have these stories, ingrained in them, and I think she's one of those protagonists in her stories as well. But I want to welcome you to the podcast, Laureen. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm doing well today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How are you feeling?
a little bit nervous, but the mezcal is definitely
helping.
helping. Can I say that?
Of course, yeah.
I have a question. Can I curse on
Yeah.
air?
You can say whatever you want, of
Thank
course.
fucking God. Okay.
So, I always like to start any podcast just asking you basically, how did you develop this curiosity, in this case, towards writing and your love, perhaps, for storytelling? Where does that come from? Where does it originate?
Well, for my whole life, I've been an avid reader. I mean, when I used to go every week and just check out stacks of books. And I used to get in trouble all the time because during school I would have a book below my desk and I would just be reading as the teacher's talking away.
Okay.
So I think also that seeing my last name on books in our house made me think, well, maybe someday I could actually write a book.
Right.
And I think that helped me write my first book and my first short stories.
So, what is your relationship? I think you're mentioning a family member of yours, but what is your relationship with Kurt Vonnegut?
He is, I always thought of him as an uncle, but technically he's a cousin.
Okay.
So.
He's a bit older then. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, he's dead now.
Yeah.
Yes, he's definitely a lot older.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I mean, of course, growing up in a household, I guess that encourages the last name for storytelling specifically. I mean, he was such a great poet and writer, and I mean, long story formats, short story formats. So, why or how does he inspire your early beginning or like?
I think that is how he inspired me, is because I saw my name there and I thought, well, I could have my own name on a book. I think one of the reasons I stayed in Europe for so long is because I was trying to escape the Vonnegut name. And I wanted to sort of make it on my own before. I never even told him I was writing a book. And then when my first book came out, I met with him in New York, and he had heard about it, obviously. And he said, I heard you have a book coming out. And I was like, I do, and I didn't want to tell you. So I gave him an advanced reader copy, and he was so supportive. It was really nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was a great man.
But I suppose, the burden of having your name written on bestseller books and different in different libraries and just seeing he was such a big player in the writing world, must have had its weight, and I think in general, when we have some of our heritage or inheritance call upon us or be a burden, it can be an incredible thing. It can help you to move in the world, but it can also stop you from developing your own skills. No?
Yes, I agree with that. And I actually usually tell people in interviews not to talk about it. So it's kind of nice that we're talking about it immediately and get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way, of course, yeah.
But I ended up moving to Bulgaria first. So from California to Bulgaria. And in my brain, I was thinking, nobody in Eastern Europe will know who Kurt is. But what happened is during communism, the censors they weren't educated people.
Right.
And so when they would read Kurt's books, they couldn't read underneath what he was saying.
Yeah.
And so they didn't understand it. So his books actually got published during communism in the Eastern European countries.
Oh, wow. Such a strange
so
event.
they
Yeah.
did know Kurt.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, these are all interesting topics. I am sure that living there and being part of that world at some point, you were asking a lot of questions about censorship and the way that different countries sort of deny certain ideas or accept certain ideas. So, how was it like during that time to be part of course, Californian sort of background where you could, think in many ways. I mean, I believe in the West there's a certain censorship as well. It's actually,
Especially now.
yeah. I mean, now it's definitely a place where it's happening. But how do you see that balance with what is seen and the unseen? Or the censored and the uncensored?
You mean in today's world?
Yeah, we can put it in today's context, but also back then.
I think, for my friends, I never visited the Eastern European countries during communism. So I was there after everything changed. But I certainly heard enough stories and I did enough research on projects that I was writing there. And they found ways to basically pass on messages. A lot of it was in theater, like live theater. Yeah. They would say things that the censors wouldn't understand, but everybody in the audience who were more intellectual would understand. So theater played a big part in that during communism. And also books like Kurt's, when they would read that and they could read between the lines and understand in his social commentary, they would understand what he was saying, and it gave them hope. Communism was really, really brutal in certain countries, and Romania in particular, with Ceausescu in power, and the West was supporting him.
Yeah, I suppose. You mentioned something very interesting, which is also this idea of cryptography. Sort of hiding messages in the observational objects, etc. But that would always have a message behind the scenes. That's quite interesting. What a context, no? Yeah. And what a shift, I guess, in that part of the world where, but maybe it shows why there's so many intellectuals coming out of that specific region, of East Europe.
Yes. I find in Eastern Europe, I can have a conversation with almost anyone. They're highly educated, and multiple degrees, multiple languages. And when I talk to someone over there, whether it's about art or literature or anything, everybody always gets me immediately. Whereas I feel like I go to the US and it's rare. The US education, I think, for especially for European art and music, and is they focus more on the American works rather than expanding their horizons. Yeah.
I guess it's because of the war and how things shifted in Europe like rapidly during the after 1945, and how that sort of accommodated certain ideas as good and others as negative. And specifically communist versus sort of like Western capitalist notions, no? But going to your biography and themes that interest you, you often write about women searching for lost identities or confronting deep truths. So what draws you to these stories, and how much of that journey reflects your own experience?
I think that it's very difficult when people are in relationships, whether it's a marriage or a partnership or anything like that, to sometimes maintain your own identity, because you get very close to someone and it's very easy to sort of lose, especially if a woman has children. Now, I never had children for that reason, for part of that reason. I think it's very easy to become so involved in other people's worlds and lives that you lose your own and you forget who you were and the passions you had and the things you believed in. And I think when my second book really was about that, because it was about someone with a woman with a child, and she left the child. And in society, you're a monster for doing that. And it was a process this woman had to go through to remember who she was and what her life had been about before a family. And it's not only relationships can cause that. You know, you can work in a job and you can have the same job for 20 years and forget who you were before that.
Yeah.
So that process of becoming yourself again is very interesting to me.
Yeah. And I guess what it shows also is that the self is transformational and symbiotic at times. No?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
It's always, I mean, the name of this podcast is Anthropoid Ethos, exactly because I felt that we needed to discuss always the context within like human in particular.
Yeah.
No, so, but it always showed more than just the self. No, it showed the context, the network that sort of is part of everyone's process. But it's true that I guess you can fall into inauthenticity when accompanied in your thoughts and your, I mean, there's something out of solitude that can give you a sense of yourself, or at least to venture your own fantasies. No?
Absolutely. And in my I found a document the other day. I was going through some paperwork, and it was written, I wrote it probably in my early 20s, and it was a whole page on what I called was numbhead. And numbhead is when you stop thinking essentially about your inner thoughts and the world around you, and thinking about others people's thoughts. What would they think in this position? And I think numbhead was a way of people escaping their own thoughts and sort of tuning out and creating lives around jobs and families, and not having that way of thinking, the mentality of thinking about what's going on in my head.
Yeah, what ideas?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. I mean, of course, I think you also are well in a relationship or a family, or like I think there's both sides of the coin, no?
Yeah.
And it's a double-edged sword at times.
It is. And I just think it's difficult for people. For me, I would never have been able to have like a family and children and being able to maintain my own thought processes, because I would have been too involved in raising children or trying to make money to survive. And, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas you can now sort of enjoy what you developed in the years of only, I mean, some people could call this like selfish. Right? But is it, good also? I mean, sometimes to be selfish. I mean, if you grew up, as you describe in many of your stories, with this sort of female protagonists that find themselves through this like detachment process and sort of realigning process, is that, I mean, you sort of often need to find your own identity, because the burdens of the collective and the culture and the status quo and etc. can be gigantic on someone, no?
I think that life in general pushes you to become a numbhead, you know, and unless you fight it, your whole life, you're stuck in that.
Yeah. So that's a good lesson, I think, like to resist the numbing down of your maybe of your ideas and questioning your surroundings. And but it's true. I feel like in general the collective or the mass, or like however you want to call it. I mean, some people might say this is like privilege talk or whatever. But I think sort of distance and like finding your otherness as well in different settings can help you find that voice, no?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, your work spans novels, theater, and film. Uh, could you name a few of the, specifically, maybe we can start with some theater and film that you have done and that
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the stories?
I think the first one would be a short film I did that was about, maybe 30 minutes long that I shot in Romania. And it was called Stuff That Bear.
Okay.
And it was developed. I read a short little clip on the last surviving taxidermist in Bucharest,
Okay.
in Romania. And I just thought, wow, what does it mean to be like the last surviving taxidermist? And it turned out the guy, he worked at the National Museum of History. And so he would take these animals in Romania, different animals, and stuff them. So stuff that bear. And so I went and I did an interview with him.
Okay.
And I wrote this sort of, it's like a kind of a dark comedy about two brothers in love with the same woman who's a prostitute. And it was the first film to come out that made Romania look glamorous.
Okay.
Because a lot of the Romanian films made it look very dark and dingy and very serious. And this was the first one you could really laugh at.
Okay.
And it was really fun to shoot it. And it opened it at the Kodak showcase at Cannes. It was a blast.
Incredible.
It was a blast. And I watched it recently again, and I hadn't watched it for years. And it holds up, but the Romanian accent of the actors is very strong. I think I need to put in some subtitles.
Okay. Yeah, maybe.
And I used theater actors, which was a little difficult because theater actors are so used to exuberance and being very loud.
Hardcore performance.
So it's kind of like, calm down.
Numb it down a bit, actually. Yeah. But so this notion of the taxidermist, why did it call your attention? I mean, personally, I think it's curious that it's definitely a craft, let's say that, or an art or something. And often art works this way. It works with the dead.
Yeah.
It's actually the reuse of this mortality, and I mean specifically animals that have been sort of gone and or shot or etc. and that are refilled for a narrative, So what was interesting for you about that?
So in the movie, the lead says, the reason I love taxidermy so much is I'm taking a dead animal and giving them a new life. I'm making them alive again. So I like that concept of bringing something from the dead back to life, in a sense, in his point of view. Very Frankenstein-y,
Yeah. I mean, I guess Shelley would be happy with this, but I mean, it's interesting. It's strange that we have this, I guess, fascination to bring back to life. I spoke some time ago with a wood carver who's really majestic at doing it, and he would walk from Chile. He's Chilean, and he would walk from Chile to Mexico or Canada often. Walk. So it's not a normal guy here. And he would mention that like his inspiration was like rescuing this dead wood that he would find, or branches that would be a bit strange in the forest in the Amazon, for example. And then he would bring them back to life. But I mean, he is someone that suffered like a lot when he was young. And maybe I wonder, is this like a therapeutic way to deal with death, because we often are traumatized by this experience of seeing others die, and we want to bring them back to life. Sounds very, that can be born out of trauma,
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, a bit strange. But tell me about other stories that perhaps you have brought to life through the art of cinema or theater.
I did another very short film it was for a festival that my friend started in Romania called the 1 Minute Film Festival.
Okay.
So you have to tell a story in 1 minute. And so I was
Difficult, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult. So it was a good challenge, and I did a film called Cuckoo and Ice Cream.
Okay.
And it was about a woman who was a streetwalker, I guess. She was standing across the street, and on the other side of the street was a man who was a cuckoo clock repairman.
Okay.
And so he was sitting there, repairing his little cuckoo clock, and she's across the street, and she sees him, and she comes over and says, what are you doing? She's watching him repair the cuckoo clock. And then when she sees the little bird spring out of the cuckoo clock, she says, it's cruel to keep that bird in the cuckoo clock. Like, what? Why don't you let him go free?
Yeah.
And he's like, get out of here, kid, So she goes back across the street, and she's standing there, and her pimp walks up, and they get in an argument, and he slaps her, and her ice cream goes flying, and he sees this, and he feels sorry for her. So he pulls the bird out of the cuckoo clock, clunk, and then the bird flies away.
Oh, okay. So a bit of fiction working here, but it's interesting. I mean, yeah. I mean, we never know how much other people are suffering. We often put a lot of veils in front of us or around us that don't let someone understand our vulnerabilities. Yeah.
So he regretted being mean to her.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. So it was a nice little short.
Okay. Hardcore though. It's like you like the visceral, like it seems.
Yes.
Visceral, but there's always a component of craftsmanship somehow within that. I mean, at least the two stories you've mentioned involve people that can create a world of their own within gears or at least bringing back to life an animal, for example. Yep. Okay. Is that part of your common practice?
Yeah, I think so. It's, a good story should always involve some kind of an epiphany or a change in a way of thought.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, you're just kind of left cold. And it also should make people think. They should have to think about it. And sometimes you can make people think about something too much, and then they're like, it's not worth it. So you have to be right on that border of,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you're mixing a very humane sort of moment of like maybe more like brutality and suffering, but at the same time, this ingenuity that we have. Maybe it's part of the same side. I mean, I've often questioned like if our desire to perhaps dominate the rest of the species and what's around us is part of this engineering capacity as well, so it's like dominating, but you want to be master of
control.
It's like it's a weird messiah complex or something that we could have, but I mean, but so your stories always happen in a location. Now you're naming Romania, but like of course you've had stories in Mexico and also Zanzibar, if I am not mistaken.
Yeah, well, I didn't intend on having a story in Zanzibar, but I went there to write my second book, and I was there for 2 months, just kind of isolating myself. I locked myself in a room, and I had food delivered to me.
Yeah,
and I started finding out how interesting Zanzibar is. And so I put it into my story. So it's like places I've been, Zanzibar and Panama and Romania. And I like stories that bring people to new locations or something that might kind of spark their brain for something.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of travel.
Right.
You travel and you see new things and your brain is rejuvenated.
Yeah. Completely true.
Yeah.
Anthropologically very relevant also to sort of sweep you out of your feet or the
Right.
normality and bring you to another place that you can co-inhabit and
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's
it's
like a
kind of
recharge for the brain.
yeah. It's I mean that power that I mean I think there's maybe we can talk about that difference because I think like in writing you can achieve that creation of a world and it's always very interpretative to your life. You know, we can identify with several things or spaces, and I think film does it in a very different way. So like, I mean, and theater, I'm sure in a different way because it's more performative, and in cinema you can edit, and writing you can, of course can edit, but it's different because the writing is it takes over you in a or possesses you in a different way. Like what do you have you ever contemplated this difference? Like how do you see it?
Between writing and film?
Yeah, and like the spaces that we can
Very,
inhabit.
it's so different. It's so different. And in fact, I was just going over the latest script that I wrote, and I was thinking about it, because you have to think visually.
Yeah.
Like in writing, you can have that emotion, or you can have that thought process only by words, but in film you're using words to write the visual. So you have to think two different ways. It's more complicated. So you have to actually have to think, okay, while somebody's shooting this movie, how are they going to visualize those thoughts I'm putting down? So you have to add tiny little character movements and things that are very slight.
Yeah.
So you don't want to, you don't want to write something that's you don't want to dumb it down.
Yeah.
And it's those movies that are super subtle that I love.
Okay.
The French are very good at it.
Okay. Yeah. Like Godard or like
Yeah,
what are you saying?
Truffaut, those kind of very, very subtle. If you looked at that script, if you just read the script with just the dialogue, you wouldn't get a lot out of it. But the actors and the way they present those movements, just fantastic.
Yeah, I guess of course also adaptation is it's a different craft and it has its own miracles, I suppose. There's one guy called Arthur Schnitzler that wrote like Traumnovelle, like a short story, it's sort of Nietzschean, so it's very intense about sort of like two lovers. And later Kubrick got that story and used it to make Eyes Wide Shut, like his last film.
Oh, yes.
And to me it was very strange to see because the Traumnovelle happens in Vienna in like I guess the apex of like the Vienna Circle, and when all the intelligentsia is happening there.
I didn't know that.
And then like Kubrick makes that film. I think it's New York, or no, it must be somewhere else. I'm not sure.
I can't remember where that was. Yeah,
it's in a suburban area. Really, I think I'm not sure where it happens, but he adapts the visual sort of aspects that Schnitzler sort of wrote in an American world, right? Like where the U.S. is really like this circle or this intelligentsia of the time, and like the storytelling is so different. I mean, he still uses like remnants of like Vienna, like waltz that plays during the film and scenarios like that.
You're right. So he used parts of it. Yeah.
Right, like music that sort of places you in the world. But I've always thought like it's very different, the feeling. Like clearly you feel a lot of suspense in both, but like the suspense in the writing, I was like, oh my God, it is taken over, to some degree my imagination. And it's a given in film at times, It's like, here it happens.
It's true.
And if I don't know Vienna, right, I'm not there, like I can imagine anything. And in the film, it's given, So it's kind of strange.
I'm going to have to go back and read the short story. It's really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. It's like brutal, beautiful. Like
the script of that, if you haven't read the script, It's fantastic.
Of high school. Yeah, I think I did because I was like trying to understand the in between, like what happened, like how did he adapt it, like.
Yeah.
But
And
it's
he
very different.
died partway through that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I feel like part of the film never got translated properly from the script.
Some things were remaining.
Yeah.
Okay, but you like Kubrick then?
Love Kubrick, of course.
Yeah. Any favorite film?
Actually, I really like the part that he did of Eyes Wide Shut. I really thought was well done.
Yeah.
It just didn't continue. What about you? What's your favorite?
The what's the name? The Orange.
Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic.
Because it's so dark. I mean, it's so dark, but I think it's
frightening,
and I think, but what I like of that film is maybe, I mean, of course, the performance is brilliant and etc.
I mean, everything from that. The director of photography.
Yeah,
I don't know who it was. Brilliant. The makeup.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe maybe what I like is more how the character, like this villain, takes he's like an anti-hero at the end, when he's tortured to learn different ways, or like through these conductivist therapies. I mean, I think the music, everything, I mean, that is one of my favorite films by him.
Yeah.
But what about this story in Panama? Tell me about it.
Part of Twin Lies, my second book, takes place in Panama. So when the woman leaves her husband and her child, the reason she leaves her husband and child, spoiler, is there's an earthquake in San Francisco, and it pushes her to abandon her life. Because when she was 16, she was a twin, and she accidentally caused the death of her other twin. And so she took over the identity of her twin, becoming her, and married someone and had a child as her twin, not as herself.
Oh, wow.
So she had to leave her life and start a new life to find out who she was.
Like literally,
literally had to leave her. Yeah. So the earthquake was kind of she had the epiphany and left. She created a scenario where she died, and then everybody believed she was dead.
Yeah. I mean, you're speaking to Mexican audiences also, like, who have lived very intensely any earthquake.
Yeah.
We are earthquake people, I would describe.
Yep.
But I mean, that makes sense, because also I feel like these type of moments that are so sublime sort of create two aspects, like, of course, like changing our identity, but also it makes the sort of status quo succumb in like in the, I don't know, like it's like a reboot of everything, so
I mean, you can see your death,
Yeah.
And I was in San Francisco, in Oakland, when they had the huge one in, was it 91? And I thought I was going to die. I really thought I was going to die. For sure. And it's an epiphany.
Yeah. You're like, either I change my life, or what I'm doing. What am I wasting it for? You know?
And it had a big part of me leaving, because I was working for a law firm. I was making a lot of money. I had the car that I wanted, and a Porsche, and it just made me think, this is not what I want. I don't care about these things, and all I want to do is write.
Right. Well, yeah.
I didn't do it immediately, but it started the whole process of, I've got to get out of here somehow. I've got to start the life I want to live.
Right. Yeah, the gears had an engine suddenly,
Yeah, it was kind of like
crazy. Yeah, I mean, I guess, these moments, I mean, if you lived it, I mean, clearly you incorporated the story as well, no, and change your life, as you say. So I'm sure like you took these little bits of your own life and created a fiction out of it. But it's
Yeah,
interesting. You clearly seem to reuse several things that you've seen or experienced and sort of incorporate it to different characters, stories.
definitely. Yeah,
So that's a
yeah,
big part of your process.
yeah. It's a little scary for me in a way because I've had people look me up and look up my work online, and then they think they know me. But I write fiction. I may take kernels of my life and kernels of my thoughts, but that's not me.
Yeah.
You know, I try and get into characters' heads.
Yeah.
And here's a problem that I have right now with what they call cancel culture, is that all of a sudden actors who aren't gay can't play gay parts. All of a sudden writers who aren't gay can't write a gay book. A lesbian, you know, if I wrote a lesbian book and I'm not a lesbian, people would jump on me. But part of the interesting thing about being a writer or an actor or something is getting into someone else's head or their skin.
Yeah.
And I feel like that part of a creative is going to be lost if people are too afraid to write things from that point of view.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And I think, I mean, that's also, I mean, in writing, you of course have to incorporate often people that you've seen or met or whatever, but of course you have to create narratives out of them. And I mean, it can be a sort of interview format or documentary, but often, I mean, you're also taking care of these people, no? So I'm sure like using pseudonyms and being anonymous in some way is part of like the fiction writing, you know. And but yeah, I mean, it's strange that, of course, to speak today in a free way or to incorporate different people, and you always risk being offensive. And I think I also agree that that's a bit of a self-made nightmare where like not being part of something like means you cannot talk about it or write about it or act like someone that you are not. No, sort of like part of being a performer is basically like possessing someone else and, you know, performing that version. Maybe it has nothing to do with that, but it's the playfulness that, I mean, it's sort of interesting as
So
well.
here's something I don't tell very many people. The first thing, I took a sabbatical from the law firm, and I wrote a series of interlocking short stories, book format, about Mexico. And I read everything I could find. I probably read 25 books on Mexico and the way people think and stories, a lot of Octavio Paz. And I wrote this series and I had a couple of the chapters published. But if I tried to publish that now, there's no way I could do it. But for me, the interesting process about this was reading about Mexico and Mexicans and their families and the way they interact with each other, and then trying to put myself in that position and write something about it. And I could never do that. Like, I couldn't do that now. People would jump on me.
Yeah.
And
But yeah, I mean, I get it that if you want to be precise anthropologically or something, I mean, you should be part of it or whatnot, or if you're writing a documentary,
Yeah.
maybe, you know. But if it's indeed like a work of imagination, you know, it's sort of what's needed is to come from an otherness to these themes, and often it's very
it's probably really bad
yeah.
if I went back and read it, you know.
But yeah, I mean, no, I get it. You have to allow yourself also to inhabit someone else's shoes, and like, yeah, I think not allowing that is its own way of dictatorship. I mean, it's its own absolutism or fundamentalism.
You have to be able to do it. So maybe if I think about it now, it was the perfect exercise, right? Because I was putting myself into somebody's shoes who I had no contact with. purely by trying to read about it and visiting Mexico, of course.
Yeah.
But so the exercise itself was good.
But it's in a way it's also mythological because of course nobody in this world has ever been to Babylon, but still stories and myths and music and songs are built on top of this idea of
Very
like
good
what
point.
it is.
Yeah.
So for me it's like interesting. Yeah, of course today there's still we are like in Mexico and Mexicans are part of everything. But who knows, in 1,000 years it exists as with that name and with that sense of identity. Like it might be just part of like this narrative or fictional world that was once.
And also, I'm thinking about painting now.
Yeah.
From an artistic painting point of view, there are plenty of artists, in particular surrealists, who hadn't visited or been to particular things, but their subconscious and their dreams brought out these images in their heads that they created.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't a writer be able to do that?
Right. Yeah, maybe. You speak about surrealists, of course, and I think like, yeah, it's curious. Like, where do our dreams come from, or like, do they have a space, that is entitled to, etc. But in the end, I think I was telling the team I dreamt I was in the mansion of like Dracula in the film from like Van Helsing 2004, I think. So clearly it's absurd and has nothing to do with anything.
You need to go to Romania.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck, Transylvania, like I have to visit. But clearly what does give me the right to speak about, it's not about that. It's sort of about creating these narratives, imagining and like being able to do so without being clearly like censored for it, like I think if a Romanian person would tell me like, no, you cannot discuss Dracula because it's like it's my culture,
Interesting.
So that's complicated. But yeah, maybe we can jump a bit. I know that right now you have a project and a script in particular you want to discuss. Maybe you want to.
Well, I feel like after immersing myself in this project for over a year, I feel like, so it's a project it started when I went to Las Pozas in Mexico, which is a surrealist sculptural garden. You know about it.
Yeah, by Edward James. No?
By Edward James. And I went
British,
there for, British who really was more comfortable in Mexico with his life.
Yeah.
And I went there and I saw this crazy garden and I thought, who the hell would create something like this? So I started looking into Edward, and then I applied for a residency at West Dean, which is his estate in England. He fabulously wealthy, British eccentric. And I went there for a month and I had access to the archives. So I started out writing a screenplay about Edward. And when I was researching the letters with Salvador Dali and Aldous Huxley and Magritte and all these famous people, and I got to the letters with Leonora Carrington, and the letters with Leonora Carrington just stopped me because they were love letters, and love letters in a platonic sense, but such a combination, a blending of brains. It just struck me. So then I started looking at Leonora Carrington and where did she come from and what's her story? And I got deeply involved in surrealism, and I feel like it changed my life. It opened portals of my brain that I'd never thought were open, never thought about before.
Yeah.
And it's really been a fascinating journey the last year and a half.
So they did have a love story.
They had a love story. Now, the letters that I read, it was definitely platonic love.
Okay.
However, I after researching it and hearing stories from Plutarcho, who was Edward James's very close friend and lover, there was something between the two of them at one point. And I created a scene in the script based on what I heard from about their relationship. Apparently, they were supposed to be married at one point, or talked about it. And so there had to have been something between them. And Leonora was very beautiful, and Edward was a lover of beauty, whether it was male or female or an animal. It didn't matter to him. And so this script explored their lives based on research, plus I used as much dialogue from the exact letters that I could from Leonora and Edward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, I'm sure it will be a surrealist story. I mean, clearly Leonora right now is like the main surrealist painter maybe that has this. I mean, specifically because she has a relationship with Mexico, also Edward James. But yeah, I mean, Gilitla is like an insane spot, no? And
it's magical.
Yeah.
I mean, what he created, I think, he wrote his entire life, poetry and books, and he had crates of just notes scribbled on cocktail napkins and just scraps, pieces of paper that he would tear off. And there are actually quite a few of them here in Mexico City in Leonora's house.
Okay.
In boxes. But they can't be accessed right now because there's some dispute going on, and I'm trying to get access to them. It's a little difficult.
Right, but there's a hidden story there. I mean, it's interesting. So you're taking that you want to take that into film, and
yes,
yeah, it might be fantastic to learn more about these two.
I mean, the most I want to go back to England and probably go through those letters again, because when I was writing that, I had just come to the conclusion that I had to merge their lives. I had to show their whole lives and the moment they met, and then their friendship and what it did for each of them, because it did a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just to mention, I think Leonora broke another auction record right now, and she's really hot.
Incredible.
As an artist, as a painter, but anyhow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So the surrealists are a big motivation for you. So, I mean, they might not call themselves fiction writers, but of course, there's something out of the unconscious of maybe other writers, for example, like the Beat Generation. I can think of that would appreciate surrealism, at least in the U.S. I mean, André Breton, the great writer, came over also to Mexico to check it out.
Before Leonora arrived.
Right. Like Dali called it he complained, I think.
He complained, yes.
Yeah, he couldn't be at a place that was more surrealist than him.
That's in the script.
Right. So it's I think, I mean, there's a relationship definitely with Mexico in this way, because I mean, it's been called like that by many people. A lot of painters or artists find color here, maybe they were working with gray settings or black and white or more monochromatic stuff, and here they always say no, there's something I discovered. It's another frequency, there's something going on.
Well, and Frida Kahlo said, I never knew I was a surrealist until someone called me a surrealist.
Right. And I guess she escapes the categorization and always works in between. She's either a magic realist, more but I don't know if these are relevant categories in the end. I mean,
nobody likes to be put in a category, I don't think. I don't like it. So
maybe some conservative people like being placed in categories, no?
Maybe, yeah.
A bit.
Even Leonora, right? Breton wrote the Surrealist Manifesto in 1924 or something?
Yeah.
And when Leonora never even read it. She didn't even know what it was about. And so she actually said that she wanted a separate category for her and Remedios Varo and Kati Orna. She didn't want to be part of that surrealist movement anymore in Europe. And part of it was because those surrealists were older men, like Max Ernst and Breton and all that. And they always had these femmes enfants.
Yeah, Magritte, of course.
All of them. And she was like, they used to call us the conductors of energy. And they weren't interested in our art and what we were doing. And she was like, I'm going to create my own group here in Mexico City. We're just going to be our own group. And we're separate from that other.
So yeah, Cathy Horn, Carrington, Alice Rajon also.
Alice Rajon, yeah.
Right.
Bridget Tate, what was her name? She came over from Paris and she lived in Mexico City. Bridget Tate Titchener. She lived in Mexico City and then she bought a ranch outside. And I had an interview, a discussion, a conversation with Pedro Friedenberg, and he had a bunch of her paintings up on the wall. And people don't even know about her, and they're very interesting.
Yeah,
really interesting.
It often happens, I think, that, of course, well-known artists who are right now, of course, represented by the art market or movies or, a lot of gigantic murals. Of course, the muralists here are massive. Are recognized, but others that maybe are hidden gems are not. So it's always tough to, rediscover or forget like several artists. I think hardly history will really give remember them or give them a gift but I guess it's part of our generation to sort of rekindle that life, that past, that artistry that
I feel like the museum in Buenos Aires right now, the one that paid
Malva.
Yes, Malva in Buenos Aires.
Constantini is the collector.
Yes,
I know.
He has impeccable taste in what, I don't know if he's the one who's actually directing what he's buying, but I think maybe he is. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
But what he's buying is top artists, and I have to get down there and see it. It's just the pieces he's buying, like the Grande Dame, Leonora Carrington's piece. It's this 2+ meter carved wooden cat woman with all these symbols on it. It's the most beautiful piece I've ever seen, I think, in my life. And that's the second piece I think he bought of Leonora's after buying the piece from New York, from Sotheby's in New York.
Yeah. And also the last Gallo that broke record, I think it was by him. So something's going on with that mine. Malva is a very...
We can hashtag him.
Yeah. Notice us, But I think the Malva itself is an interesting museum. I think there's many beautiful contemporary art museums.
Yeah.
But something out of Brazil and Argentina comes out in a different way. I think mainly it's because they also... we appreciate, of course, realism in Mexico and maybe in the US, but there's different traditions. But the abstract sort of artists, the optic artists, the kinetic artists that come from that part, it's kind of different to here.
It is different. It is different. Yeah.
I appreciate the variety, of course, to each their own, and everyone has their good and bad things. But it's kind of cool what has become of that. But going back to maybe writing, you have in 2050 the Yolders, and there you explore generational conflict through a dystopian lens.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what inspired this sort of futuristic satire?
It's the first science fiction thing I've ventured into, perhaps trying to keep a distance from Kurt. And it's it's based on science. So it could possibly come true in the future. It's about a pill that people can take in the future, 2050, and it's a cell regeneration growth based on jellyfish. You know, if like a jellyfish loses, they can grow back. So the concept behind it is that you can have cell regeneration with your own body. So you can regenerate your organs, you can regenerate your skin. Your skin peels off in sheets like a plastic sheet. And then an 85-year-old can become 25 again or 30. And so what happens if an entire population of older people become 25? What happens to society at that point? And I would imagine that the 25-year-olds are not going to be happy about this, because what happens is the 85-year-olds have all this experience behind them in the world, and they can be hired for jobs. They know how to socialize with people in a different way. They're just smarter, and they look like they're 25. So the 25-year-olds then get angry because their jobs are being taken. So there's a generational war that starts between the two of them. So how do you tell who's 85 and who's 25 anymore? Does it matter? You know, the 85-year-olds certainly don't think it matters. They don't care. They're like,
they don't
woo!
care, but they probably have all the means to.
Their libido
be
is strong again. They're like, I can live my life with my 85-year-old brain. You know.
Strange, yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of it's an exploration between the generations and what would happen in that situation.
Wow.
But also in the dystopian world, it's a destroyed world. So the fires have basically taken over California and destroyed it. And the CEOs have stepped in and taken over civilization. So there's no politicians anymore. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
So I wrote that before this happened.
Actually. You mean the fascist techno-feudalism that we're part of?
Yes,
today,
I mean, you see who's up there with. No, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into it.
Voldemort, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's go into it. I mean, it's such a fascinating idea. I mean, you're using some notions from eugenics, like to create this sense of like futurism. I love that through this research on jellyfishes and medusas, or what, like all that species that are. I mean, I think we're finding out, like scientifically, that as you say, they are able to regenerate and live for like a really long time. Not sure forever, but at least like a really long time. As a reference, you take the reference of the pill. To me, it sounds like you're naming Huxley here, and like Brave New World and Soma.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it's interesting because, of course, and also this question of like what happens, because I've never seen this being posed as a question. Like what happens when the older generations are competing with the young ones. The only advantage of the young is basically that they are not old,
The vitality.
Exactly. And that you could work more and longer hours and, but at the same time, the 80-year-olds that are, becoming young again.
They have the memories. So in the script, the older people have the memory of the destruction of the world. But they won't talk about it because it was too brutal, it was too violent, because the electricity was turned off. Think about the world. If the electricity was turned off for a month, what would happen? Think about
right now,
that.
havoc, complete havoc.
No Wi-Fi, no communication, no refrigeration.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the society would stop. It would completely. We are so dependent on electricity right now.
Yeah, everything.
So dependent.
Would reboot.
Our water is, like, for example, in my house, my water is pumped into my house and through my faucets. If the electricity stops, I have no water.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have like a gravity-fed water. So it's the water wars, right? People are fighting over water.
Okay. Still, I mean, it's happening now, but
Right?
for sure.
I mean,
But for
Mexico
sure.
City in particular.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
No, I mean, some people say that the Syrian war started really because of like these like water
yes.
struggles
Yes,
and
the movie
conflicts and
Chinatown,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's such a fascinating uh, scenery to think of. Like, what if like that would be the consequence of our technologies advancing
And then
and
it's just dead. All of his technology's gone. It's
right,
just gone.
right. So what I mean, because of course also you would have the issue of like, do you keep reproducing now that you can live like sort of forever? Is there a point to like having kids and families actually? You know, like would it be
Why
just
do it?
yeah,
Yeah.
like would it not shift completely that mindset of like, oh, I want to bring to the world someone new that learns from scratch.
So part of the argument in the script is also if you can control your death dates. So in the script, the CEOs are controlling the death dates. They're input into the pills. So the CEOs know when you die, but you don't know. But the CEOs want to get rid of the death dates. So there's an argument between the scientist who invented this and the CEOs, because the CEOs all want to live forever, and he's like, no, oh my God, do you think you're God? Do you really think you're God? And so that's also part of the fight that's going on in the script also.
Right.
There's a lot going on.
Wow. Well, love it. I mean, it's fascinating. And like, what other films maybe inspired you to like, or other stories fascinated
Definitely
you?
Aldous Huxley.
Aldous Huxley.
Yeah. I mean,
he's in there.
Yeah, that's.
I love Huxley as well, to be honest. Like, there's a
okay.
Perception,
Yeah.
I mean, Brave New World.
Did you know that he started a movement out in the United States?
No.
And I think it
Psychedelic movement, or which one?
No, it was like based on meditation, abstinence. I mean, they were kind of like these cult gurus. It was, and Edward James actually participated in this movement.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was called the Vedanta, I think, something like that.
So
I don't know how to pronounce
Hindu
it.
influence for sure within it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, really? Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And other stories, or mainly was Huxley? Or?
This is kind of cheesy. It's a really old movie. It was called Logan's Run.
Okay.
Have you ever seen it?
No.
No.
Maybe the
really
guys
old
team,
movie, like maybe 70s or something. And it was a movie about a society where people were exterminated when they got to a certain age. So you knew your extermination date.
Oh, shit.
And so, of course, a group of people is going to try and escape that extermination.
Yeah.
So it's kind of about all that.
Yeah.
And so I saw that as a kid, and so it stuck in my head. So that would, I mean, yeah, I would say that influenced it also.
Would you like to know, like, when you die or not? Would it, like, Minority Report is another film I can think of, like, but where they, I mean, it's not about, I'm not sure it's about like our own self-death, but it is about.
I think I would.
Yeah.
I think I would want to know what I mean, if I could. I think I would want to know, because then you can plan for it. You could be like, I want to do all these things before I die, and then when you know you're going to die, you could like have your favorite milkshake, and then just die. I don't know. What about you? What do you think?
I think it would be you would have this issue of like, maybe it's not time travel, but it's a very strange situation, because I'm not sure you would know what happens in between. You know, you might know like the minute and what you're doing at the time and like what's going on. But in my mindset, it's like, oh, but like still, well, I mean, maybe I survive 100 million things, you know, until that point. I think there's another film recently that was that had that theme actually.
So you know when you're going to die, so you can try to die before that.
Well,
what
I
you
mean,
mean?
you could like try to kill yourself before and maybe
You
find
could
out
do all
if-
these crazy
Right.
extremist sports and
right,
like
right.
jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. And
Yeah, without anything. No, it's just like maybe I survive.
I like that.
But I mean, I think it leaves a lot of interpretation in the middle, where you wouldn't know maybe how to act, react, or maybe it's not important. Maybe you're like, oh, what the fuck? I
Yeah.
thought it was the basis of my life, like to know how I would be gone. But now, well, is it true?
Maybe
Is
I
it?
see another script coming on here.
Let's go. I'll join you. Like sounds fascinating. Anyhow, let's talk about some other topics that you
Okay.
work on, like clearly like the loss of the self, or the shift of the self into something different is like part of your interest, but also a sense of epiphany.
A metamorphosis, really. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's not new for people to write about this.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Kafka.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really think as we go through our lives, if you're really someone who's open to change, you have to be open to change. If you're not open to change, it's not going to work. If you're open to change and you're willing to look at your life as different sections of your life, and you're willing to change throughout that, I think you'll have a much more interesting life and be open to a lot more. And I feel like a change is coming through my life right now, for example, and I think that surrealism has helped with that. And I think that Leonora Carrington believed in portals within the brain and portals within your life. So if you're thinking about your brain and being able to understand different things within the world, and certain things can open your brain to understanding different things. She has a painting where it's like a house with 3 different levels on it, and there's holes in the floor, and you can go through these holes as like a ghost or a spirit or part of yourself or your brain. That's the way I look at it. The brain is going through that, and you're understanding different parts of the world and different parts of your brain and the way it processes things. And I think you can, this sounds a little weird, but I do think if you're open to that, you can understand different things within our world.
Yeah. In our own consciousness.
And I mean, your consciousness, is there a soul? Is a soul a thing, or is it not? Are you just like a flesh bag, or is there something more to your brain that will survive? I don't know. I mean, I'm basically an atheist, so I really shouldn't believe in these things, but it's making me think about it a lot more than I did before.
Right. Yeah, I mean, is there something? I mean, I think of the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Like one of the oldest stories. Like the Bible talks about, like this boat and these like kings from the past, etc., and that are more ancient than the culture that talks about them. But is there something that I mean, basically, you see there also these changes, these epiphanies, these changes of the self, this encouragement to become something different, and like a triumphant or hero story or villain story or whatever it is. I mean, there seems to be an inherent structure to these stories that we are sort of fond of when they change and shift. And do you think there's something out of the stories that are archetypical and sort of communicate with us in a very deep sense? Is there more like an open structure? Like, what's your view on it? Like,
you mean stories that I'm writing, or that I've written, or do you mean stories in general?
Maybe in general, but also the stories that call us, to these sort of.
I mean, isn't it like one of the great questions of our lives is, what is life? Does life mean something? Does life, is it just going to end? Are we going to live our lives and it just stops?
Yeah.
Is there something more to what we can experience. And if we opened our minds to things, if you look at the old in the 60s, like the experiences with hallucinogenic drugs, did they open the minds to people? Did they help them in some way to understand life and what's going on better? I do have a theory that it's good if people can take mushrooms at least once in their lives to experience it.
For sure.
And I do think it opens their brains.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that I personally think of things differently after I've taken a hallucinogenic or something.
Yeah.
Not that I do it very often, but I would like to do it more.
Yeah. But I think, they open up also like emotional barriers. We have traumas that haven't been processed, things that have created maybe horrendous mannerisms or habits we have, I think for sure, I've heard this many times. I think I want to recapitulate these, like, leaders in the world should have taken something that would alter their consciousness, because they are often replicating status of the past, conservative, very fundamentalist ideas, and I think it's like not up to this world, they should have some type of understanding of themselves and in a deeper way,
maybe that should be a requirement with world leaders.
Definitely.
Spend a night on mushrooms.
Yeah. Like, don't tell me what to do if you haven't been deconstructed, reconstructed in yourself, for sure. I think if you move a bit the microphone to the other side, like, so that, perfect. You have suspended your characters like in between worlds often, so it's like they are going through this transformation. So is there something, you love surrealism, I guess, because of like it's linked to the unconscious also, that maybe Freud developed at some point, but it shows like an in-between world. Is it a fascination for you, like this? What happens in between?
And my first book, the dream that I had a dream one night, and it was very, very vivid. And it was a woman being thrown out of a black SUV in the middle of the desert in a cocktail dress with sequins on it. And the sun hitting the sequins and sparking off of it. And it was so vivid that I woke up and I thought, I have to write a script, a book about this, but I don't know. Where was the desert? Who was the woman? What was happening in that? And so I started exploring, researching deserts all over the world. And I was thinking, where was the desert that would create a scene like this? And she was left in the middle of the desert to survive, really. And so I looked at, I decided it was the Southern Sahara outside of Morocco, south of Morocco. And I started researching the history of that desert, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting.
Why? Tell me why.
Well, because it was originally Spanish. And then in 1975, Spain said, okay, we're walking away from this. And Morocco created what they called the Green March. And they got it because everybody surrounding it wanted that desert. It has phosphates in it that they sell. And so they marched all these people into the desert from Morocco to settle there. And in the process, they kicked out all of the not all of the native people, a lot of the Berbers. They were pushed into Algeria. So I was like, okay, this history of this Saharan desert is really fascinating. So why would this woman end up in the middle of this desert being pushed out of this car in a sequin dress, right? So then I had to sort of work in the whole history of the Sahara with that dream. It was pretty cool.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, the power of dream. What the hell are they? Great question. Of course, they help us to rest and what the doctors tell us, but there's also this this sort of strange imagination of like places we've never visited, that we've never been to,
Yeah.
and still we see them and incorporate them and move around them and imagine stories in them. So
And if you can access that,
yeah,
whether through mushrooms or a dream or just your subconscious somehow, I think it makes your artistry a lot more powerful.
yeah, of course,
I mean, you have whole other worlds you can write about.
of course,
You know.
yeah. Crazy story though. I mean, it's interesting that, I mean, when you say the Spanish were the original there, I mean, clearly I think you mean within the last 100 years.
I mean,
You know.
when they relinquished
Right.
power over it.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's curious.
Obviously.
Because I was like, I mean, probably even Spain is new to the world.
Yes.
To some degree. But it's interesting to see. I mean, anthropologically, we find that substances or like matter, like chemicals, and the way that they react to the world, or have an aesthetic appearance, or serve as for the semiconductors that we're using for our technologies. I mean, the film Dune is interesting in that way, because you have like this planet that serves this like spice, no, that is like has these magical powers, etc., and all these things. But I think it's always interesting from like where something comes from, and like the way it's been I guess how it's evolved, or how it's been reused by the human society, or imagination and culture, and like materials, or the material culture of things, you know, has such a fascinating impact in the way that we change and the way that we move in the world, that I think using that as your main story, you know, component is curious. A lot of people want to start from ideas, and it's just an idea that changes you. But also in the one you wrote about 2050, I mean, it's a pill, you know, there's an object, there's a matter that is like shifting our view. I mean, of course, psychedelics can do that in a drastic way, and they're an organism of its own. But yeah, minerals are such an important component of today's world, and I don't think people understand to what degree.
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
including, you mean natural resources?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's insane.
Yes, absolutely. If you look at Ukraine and what it has to offer, and
right, I mean, what an interesting topic.
Yeah.
To just name it as we want to get the minerals from that part. You have to sort of quit them for the geopolitics of it, and everyone fighting around
pay
them.
for this war with your minerals.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, there's something going on here.
And clearly it's about, I mean, in many ways it's about beautiful, or what we find beautiful materials, like diamonds, you know.
Yes.
There's a great film called Blood Diamond.
My second book deals with this also.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. What is a blood diamond? Right. What is a clear diamond? I mean, how can you find a diamond that actually is not a blood diamond?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Yeah.
How do you get them?
Yeah. And what's the process to gather these things and process them also, and like, it adds these complicated chains, you know, to understand them. And it's affecting today's world and geopolitics. It's creating wars. I mean, it's very well known that a little part of the gold that exists in your phone's chip comes from Congo, and it's definitely coming from a very questionable place. Lithium, uranium. I mean,
absolutely.
I know, for example, that the uranium used for the nuclear bombs, you know, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki were taken during the Belgian Congolese sort of extraction of uranium that was found there, and, you know, was given for the Allies, you know. And so there's like a very curious network, you know, that is related to this sort of use of energies that you know, feed our world and our futurism, our sense of what is up, because that's also the main topic, is like what is developed, what is first world, what is all of this. The futurism to construct this always comes from questionable places. So.
Yeah, and I was reading an article today about this beach it's either California or Nevada called Bombay Beach, which it was this sort of Los Angeles escape. They built these hotels there. There was like a salt lake there, and it recently the water retracted in it because of the droughts. And then they found, I think it's lithium reserves underneath this lake, where previously there'd been a lot of homeless, like a lot of the homeless from Los Angeles had moved out there because it was an abandoned city. There was all these rooms and beautiful old hotels and stuff out there, and they just moved into them, and they just recently discovered all these reserves under. In the next 5 years, keep an eye on that and see what happens to it.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
Tell the listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah, you also seem like super interested in like transgenerational relationships. I mean, clearly you are part of that because Vonnegut, Kurt, inspired part of your notion of being a writer, or where you wanted to see yourself at. How does that like transgenerational relationship become part of your storytelling, or like how do you incorporate that into your stories?
I think that maybe because I didn't have children, maybe I'm a little more aware of the differences between the generations. I don't know. I have 3 nieces, one who's 18 and a couple who are 14, I think. And it's so interesting to me to watch them growing up and their relationships with their parents, and where they gain their knowledge from now. I mean, it's so different from like me growing up and just reading books, and I don't think they're readers, but I think kids that age are looking at TikTok and they're getting news from sources like that, from videos. And so I think that's really changed. That's why this podcast is interesting to me, because it's something visual that people can also watch, or they can just listen to it, audio wise.
At their will. Yeah.
So I see that there was a video I sent to my niece the other day, who's 18. She just graduated, and it was a commencement speech, and the man, it was a professor who went on from that school, I think. And he said, I'm a linguistics professor, and I'm going to speak to you in your own language. And so he went, and I couldn't understand what he was saying, because there's so many words that people use that I don't know now. Huh. And he spoke to the commencement class in their language. And I sent it to my niece, and I said, can you understand this? And she wrote back, she's coming to Mexico City in a couple of days, and she said, we're going to have a conversation about this. But yes, I understood everything that he said. I mean, just the words they used, like they're completely different words. It's a whole different language.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So the whole generational thing, and how the language is changing, and how they get their news, and how they view the world, is completely different. Completely different.
Yeah. But there's always, I mean, much like in any etymology, of the words, there's always a root that we can track. Yes. If you're clearly a linguist, you know, like doing this.
So here's a good example of this. So a friend of mine said that her husband had been helping out with their business. He was working on something, and her son said, "Oh, that's totally cheek." And we were like, what is cheek? Totally cheek? Like, what does that mean? Cheek? Like and cheek. So it means like butt cheek. Oh. Like ass. Oh, like that's totally ass. That's totally it's a negative thing.
Like stupid or okay. And you'd be like, no fucking clue what happened.
Like, what the hell does cheek mean?
Yeah.
But it had an origin. It was like butt cheek,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, but you wouldn't use it in the same context, bro. I mean, you would say he's an ass, maybe.
Yeah,
or like,
but it's not used in this. Yeah, it's not used in the same way. It's taken that and then morphed it into something else.
Yeah. I mean, I am reading an interesting text that speaks about like the human desire to understand its origin, but also the romanticization of the origin and how we've I mean how in maybe in the 18th century, 19th, 20th, and so on, we've developed theories trying to search for the origin, and one of them of course comes from linguistics, where they try to track down the etymology. And so I remember reading that at first this was like this was mainly searched upon by like maybe like Nazi people or colonial pseudoscientists that would try to understand like where does maybe the European come from, or like what's the origin. It's Aryan, and it's this whole mythology of going back in time. And I mean, this author is sort of questioning hardcore, like that these etymologists, were tracking it to Proto-Indo-European, or Germano-Proto-Indo-European.
Interesting.
Or, I mean, clearly, like Sanskrit is the like elder sort of origin story that we are like placing in this sense of beginning, but. It's kind of strange that it's really, connected with this melancholy and nostalgia and like geopolitics that comes later with it.
I'd like to read that.
Yeah, it's
very interesting.
Fascinating work by. I'm sort of referencing him almost in every podcast because I like his work.
Okay, I definitely
like Stefanos Geroulanos, very interesting guy. I think he's Greek, but living in New York.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
What's the title of the book?
I think it's like it's on human origins and our obsession with the.
I think maybe I read something about that.
But brilliant. I mean, it's interesting because. Anyhow, I thought about this linguist talking about like, let me relate to you in your tongue.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to reflect, maybe as writers, like that language evolves in its own ways, in its own pace, and often academic sort of influenced backgrounds try to negate the idea that it is completely random at times, or it's about the context, So maybe like in Spanish, you have the Royal Spanish Academy, and you should speak within what the frameworks. But clearly, it's not the case. Like clearly, there's words that are invented every day. Also in English, It's like, what about like maybe a Hong Kongese English that is said in some random way that doesn't relate fully to the status quo.
Yeah.
But it's still like part of that history, and
I find Spanglish very interesting.
Yeah, it's strange,
right?
no?
There's a lot of that in California.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, it has both influences, so it speaks for its lack of borders and its rupture of that world that wants to have everything in boxes,
Yeah.
Well, cheers to that.
Yeah. Oh, I think I finished mine.
We'll do it. So, I also want to know, I mean, you clearly discuss these ideas between sort of the poetics and the political.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how do you balance these stories, like these post-revolutionary spaces in your tale, Lenin Graveyard?
I think it's
tell us a bit about the story, maybe, so that we understand.
Yeah. So, I think as an outsider going into Eastern Europe, soon after the revolution, it was incredibly fascinating. And then there was actually what they called a velvet revolution in Bulgaria when I was living there, where they stormed the Parliament House, and I was in the middle of it. I mean, I walked into the middle of it to feel what it was like. And they were firebombing the Parliament, and they had broken out all the windows, and they were burning tires up. There was black smoke everywhere, and they had pulled apart the cars of the people, because the people were the lev at the time, the monetary, that was their money, was the lev, had tanked so much, yet these people in the government were driving, Mercedes and BMWs, and people were furious. And they literally, with their hands, pulled the cars apart. And there was this old woman with a headscarf tied around her, and she was jumping up and down on the door of this Mercedes that they had pulled apart. And it was just an incredible time there. And it felt a little bad because I was sitting there watching this, but I wasn't part of their society, so there was a lot of kind of fascination but guilt involved in it. And it was hard to, I could only write from my perspective. So the story called Lenin Graveyard was after the revolution, all around the country, they had pulled down the statues of Lenin, and then they took them to this area outside of town, and they left them there. And I went out there, and I was like taking some photographs, and these statues were, so they were laid on the ground like that, so you would see this huge Lenin head sticking up out of the snow, and it was just so bizarre. And I was trying to figure out like the difference between like a communist and an ex-communist, and what does that mean? If you were a communist during communism, how did you ever become an ex-communist? And then I tried to tie it in with the Lenin Graveyard. And did that answer your question?
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. What a crazy. I mean, you've created an imagery in my head that is.
It was a
brilliant.
really.
Also, I mean, what I understand from Lenin's death, and also like what happened after, is that he was placed in the Red Square, in like and cooled or iced, or I think it's part of how do you call these science supposedly? Criminology.
Criminology, yeah.
Where I mean, he is kept there, and still is this sort of ghastly presence that exists post Soviet communism, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting that this is the relationship also with the way that we destroy iconography or like what that means for our identity.
To bring it down, take down those statues.
But I've heard, I mean, right now we have clearly a conflict in Ukraine, and I mean that's kind of a thing of its own. But I've heard from people I've met that were part as well of this like Soviet world or like the communist world, that don't identify with the national barriers. So like they won't recognize themselves as Russian or Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Because they were both sort of in the middle of that border, and that don't see their identity within that parameter. So
it's so complicated. I mean, it was even I lived in Budapest, also Hungary, for a year, and at that point a lot of people spoke Russian because of communism, but they didn't want to admit it, and they didn't want to speak it, and it was such a negative thing. And there was a Russian woman who lived next door upstairs, and she wouldn't even come out of her house anymore because it was such a negative thing to speak Russian and be a Russian at the time. And that region is so complicated, with Ukraine and Moldova and a lot of those areas that still use Cyrillic alphabet, Bulgaria also, but yet part of the country doesn't want to be associated with Russia, and part of it still embraces it. It's really complicated, and I don't want to get into it because I don't even understand it all.
I heard recently a very interesting podcast called "The Rest Is History," and they were discussing like how these differences exist in Russia and Ukraine and their history. And I thought it was very interesting. Like, why do they write in Cyrillic or speak, that variation in what I understood was that when the Roman Empire fell, the Western Roman Empire fell, the Eastern Roman Empire continued. We call it Byzantine Empire, but nobody in that time called it Byzantine Empire, apparently.
We call it, yeah.
Right? And what I understand is that the Rus, the Kiev Rus and the Rus that were like placed sort of more in Moscow and, would go down the river and reach Turkey and today's Turkey, but back then it's Constantinople and was recognized as this heightened society. When they divide, of course, the western side of like the Roman Empire starts clearly discussing and talking in Latin. It continues with that tradition, but the Eastern Front sort of recognizes itself closer to the Greek, and they start to establish sort of that Cyrillic alphabet, and that's why like a random sort of Rus town, I think, and community starts to adjust and adapt that like Cyrillic alphabet. So strange, like how that happened. Of course, it's the heightened society, etc.
Yeah, and I know in Serbia, it's kind of divided. Like the street signs are still in Cyrillic and then Latin alphabet. Yeah, and Bulgaria, I don't know. When I lived there, it was still all Cyrillic. I'm assuming it still is, but I don't know. And I know in Turkey, like Ataturk is the one that changed the alphabet, right? I mean, he was very forward thinking in regard to that. Yeah,
different to.
But Romania, apparently, the Romanian language is the oldest surviving form of true Latin. So
I've heard the same.
Yeah, it's that part of the region of the world is fascinating, and the history and the Byzantine and the Turks and the Ottomans coming in and controlling it for so long, each country like has their own salad, a Greek salad, right? What do you think of when you think of a Greek salad?
A lot of onion.
Like onion, onion, a tomato, cucumber, feta, whatever. So each country has that salad left over from that time period, but they have different names for it. Like in Bulgaria, it's a shopska salad, right? And then they have different things in them. So some of them put egg in it, some of them put olives in it, some of them put onion, some of them like marinate the onion before they put into it. It's all a little bit different, but it's from that time period. And it's very interesting what's still left in those countries. Food-wise and language-wise.
And clearly we in the sort of Western mindset, whatever Mexico is also, because it's like this variation of worlds, for sure tends to think of like the fall of the Roman Empire, and then you have like the Holy Roman Empire, etc. But to me, it's really curious that actually like the ones that receive this sort of Roman tradition, of course, you have the Gauls and like barbarians, the German tribes that sort of grab these sort of influences, but it's sort of in a distorted way. But really, like what is strange of that period is seeing like or realizing that the actual sort of Islamic enlightenment is the real like front runner in that inheritance. You know, it's
Yeah.
like the one that sort of creates this other world that is massive and that accepts different cultures. Like what I understand is like the legions would go to different spots, you know, and they would invade and kill and whatever, and then they would bring back the gods, no? So, like,
Yeah.
but they had to accept Rome as a core. But like, okay, you can do your practice and have your crazy worship,
Yeah.
but sort of adore this part. And in the sort of in Islamic height, it was also like that. Just like it was sort of like you could believe in. I mean, maybe more monotheist. Really, it's like there's a shift.
Yeah.
But many prophets, many ideas, etc. So it's kind
But
of
are all similar.
yeah, yeah,
Very
exactly.
similar.
Yeah, and we owe like I think a lot of like the translation of the text of Aristotle, like the Hesiod, the different writers that were very important, sort of to them and their translation of the original Greek, no? And,
Yeah. Yeah.
but also like scientific inventions like the algorithm by Al-Khwarizmi.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Anyhow, I mean, I'm going
Yeah,
all
no,
over.
but I mean, yeah, it's an interesting discussion. The origin of mathematics,
Right,
you know,
right.
so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
And
also,
medicine and
also of the you know the Mayans and the Aztecs, and
Yeah.
the Olmecs and the Toltecs and all that.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
what they had, those civilizations were incredibly advanced.
Yeah.
Incredibly.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's strange. I mean, I think today we should be aware, of course, that I mean, civilizations fall, and often we're in denial of this notion. But there's for sure different elements that show decline, which is like a war against libraries with like Baghdad or
absolutely.
Alexandria, you know,
Absolutely.
or
Yeah.
museums or cultural spaces that
Yeah.
are reminders of this deep history that we have with humanity for propaganda's like aims, no? So
I actually wrote a paper during college on the fall of the United States,
yeah,
comparing it to Rome. And look what's happening.
yeah, it's a bit strange.
An intellectual collapse
Yeah.
is what I call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very weird. But yeah, I mean, I think we're arriving to the end of the podcast, but I want you to maybe give you the mic and just tell us about your upcoming project. I mean, clearly the script of Edward James and Leonora Carrington are in your head. What else do you have lining up?
Well, I've really been focused on this surrealism project and also the futuristic one. So basically, I'm looking for, I want to find like-minded people, hopefully a producer who will identify and enjoy producing something about surrealism. And I do think that female surrealists in particular are really having a moment right now. When I was in Europe a year ago, the Tate in London, the number of female surrealists and female painters in general has really increased. I'm seeing exhibitions about Leonora worldwide.
Yeah.
So I think I have a really unique take on this because I'm basing it on the letters that I really read, and I've tried to stay close to those letters and close to their lives, so it's really true and people can get an idea of their lives and the interaction between the two of them, because they were really very good friends who encouraged each other's creativity. And that's really important to have friends like that if you're an artist.
Yeah.
Because it helps you. It helps you open your brain to certain things. And for sure, Edward, if he hadn't been exposed to the surrealists and spent time with them and collaborated with like Salvador Dali and all that, he would not have been able to create Las Posas. You know, I really think it's something everyone should see. It's a really unique place.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Original.
yeah. So I'm kind of hoping to find a producer for this movie, and also the futuristic one who identifies with it and falls in love with it.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, but it should be authentic, of course.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Well, Laureen, thanks so much for being part of the 14th episode of Anthropoid Ethos.
Yeah.
I deeply appreciate this new friendship we've created. I love the way you think and what you're creating through this sort of adventures you have, and you have a true skill, and I'm honored that you were eager to participate in the podcast. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, see you next time.